the residential market, so the apartment market in Hanoi is relatively new, so it's only the last 5 or 6 years whereby developers have really started building good quality apartments. So, you know, some developers have been quite lucky. There's been a build it and, you know, they'll buy it mentality. But now the buyers are becoming increasingly sophisticated. They are looking as end users, so they're looking at how they'll live in it, rather than purely as just a financial investment. So therefore developers really have to look at what people really want and what they really need if they are to compete on the open market. So whether this is the size of the apartment, the style, the facilities, the technical facilities of the building, they have to take each of these factors into consideration, not on what they think or what their neighbour is doing or what their competing developer is doing. They really have to look at what the market wants. We will have to look at the amount of supply coming to the market. I mean, that's going to be the main factor. There is strong demand from end users. However, there is enormous amounts of supply. There will be a lot of choice for buyers. So on average, that may cause a levelling off or even a slight downward pressure on prices. But those developers that have invested into good design, good architecture, good, you know, working with good technical consultants, they will still be able to maintain a premium price. So if the developers are willing to invest into quality, then they can still achieve good returns. But, you know, the basics of real estate will still apply. It has to be a good product in a good location. The office market, so if we look at the Grade A market, Grade A and B market in the CBD of Hanoi, there has been quite a reasonable amount of new supply to the market in the form of BIDV Tower and Capital Tower, about 13,000 and 23,000 square meters respectively. We have seen quite an increase in demand for office spaces, so from new companies entering the market, but also from companies expanding their presence here in Vietnam, and also from new companies, from Vietnamese companies from the private and state sector, also looking for good quality offices. Having said that, it's coming off quite a low base. The demand dropped almost to zero about 1 year ago, so the demand is not really keeping pace with the supply at the moment. So therefore we are expecting to see a downward pressure from rental levels from the last year or two. A lot of the leases are expiring over the next 6 months, 1 year in the Grade A market. So existing landlords are really looking at incentivizing their tenants to stay in their existing buildings rather than to look elsewhere. So there will be some good opportunities for tenants in this market to plan for the next 3 to 5 years for their leases. There's some quite interesting things happening in the retail market in terms of the projects. There's some fairly central retail developments being constructed and refurbished in the Hoan Kiem district, so that should provide new opportunities for retailers to take good space. Savills has recently concluded a transaction with a large, well-known fashion retailer very close to the Opera House, which should be opening towards the middle of the year. There is certainly built up demand from retailers. I think one thing they're lacking is good quality formal retail space to move into. There are the large regional or the large malls under planning and under construction in some place, which will provide a new type of retail for Hanoi, something a bit, we may expect to see back in Bangkok or Kuala Lumpur or Hong Kong. So there are some large scale retail plans underway, but whether they start being very active during 2010 is another question. Probably more likely we'll start seeing those coming into effect probably 2011, 2012. The hotel market recovered quite well towards the end of last year. It's still quite early to say how that's going to pan out for 2010. It's quite a notoriously fickle market. The tourism figures are looking quite good for the rest of 2010, although they have been said to have been reduced slightly since last year. I read recently. All in all, I expect that the hotel market will be fairly slow and steady, I think, for 2010. I believe so. Along with the increase in demand for international standard office space, that means new companies coming to the market and increased demand for the service departments. There is a small amount of new supply coming to the market, but not so much, so it won't have a big impact on it won't have any downward pressure on the rental prices, we estimate. So we predict that that's a fairly strong, stable sector for 2010.
Yeah.
Well, there's always lots of opportunities. It depends who you mean, whether it's the buyers, the tenants, or the developers. I think everyone will, as a country as a whole, I think everyone will benefit from the property market this year. We hope that it will be a stable, sustainable growth, which is generally good for the economy. There are some risks for some property developers who are perhaps not changing with the market. The users and the buyers and tenants are becoming quite sophisticated, and they do have a lot of choice now, so developers really have to move with the times. There's certainly opportunities for office tenants, as I said earlier, in 2010. Many tenants will be given incentives by their landlords, and there's certainly some good deals to be had, and advise any office tenants out there to make contact with our leasing team to review their current leases or their next requirements and see how we can help out with that. Opportunities for buyers, again, it really depends on what type of buyer you are. There's if you can look for a good product in a good location, which has good opportunities for good sustainable growth, then clearly that's basic. But certainly look and evaluate all opportunities. Personally, I think there's some quite hot areas to look out for 2010. We can see large potential in the eastern part of Hanoi, so across the Red River. There's been several large infrastructure developments there recently, really opening up that area for development and for personal investment, and we've seen quite a rapid take up in land transactions and individual house prices, this type of thing. So I'd encourage people to consider that area and to look around and to see if they can spot any good deals. We're currently working on one or two projects.